AI-driven transformation. So we're kind of blending the two speakers that have gone before. Selena Wang is going to join us, the Vice President of Marketing Programs, Payments for Chase. Shahar Nazami is the Vice President, Enterprise Analytics and Data with Meridian Credit Union. And it's all going to be led, this panel, by Elizabeth Walford, Founder and Managing Director, Walford Partners. Let's give them a round of applause as they come on up here. We can try that again. As they come on, they'll get here. Okay, here they come. Hey, good morning. Good morning, good morning.
Cheers.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning and thank you. Yeah, I'm going to sit in the middle. Okay, so thanks for the warm welcome. I hope everyone is doing great on a Friday morning. I missed yesterday, but I did hear great reviews. So I'm Elizabeth Walford, and I have the pleasure of speaking with Selena and Zahar today. And we're going to flip things around a little bit because we've heard so much about AI. It's so new. Is everyone using it? How are we feeling about AI? And what we want to share with you, and I think, with this group of esteemed marketers, you're going to agree with us that AI has actually been around for a long time. Like, as marketers, we've heavily relied upon models, predictive analytics, and the experts with us today, Selena and Zahar, are going to really level set our discussion. So of course we're going to share with you some practical advice. We're going to talk about your teams. We're going to talk about integration. We're going to talk about best practices. We're going to cover it all. And at the same time, I think it's really important to remember that this isn't something that is so new and we're wondering how we step into it, because as esteemed marketers, we've actually been at it for a long time. So I think that context is really helpful, and that sets the stage for our conversation today, okay? And it is a panel discussion, so of course we've got some questions lined up, and we will try to reserve some time at the end because we'd love to hear from you either in the room, and I know we've got people who are joining us online, okay? So I'm actually going to start by adding a little bit more color to the introductions, which were fantastic from our moderator, but I've gotten to know Selena and Zahar, and I think what you'll find is their backgrounds combine to make for a really engaging conversation. So Selena has not only a background in financial services, working as the VP of Marketing Strategy at JP Morgan Chase, obviously payments focused, but covers so many other industries in her career, from automotive to telco and beyond. And I always find that diversity really provides breadth in someone's journey and expertise. Zahar, what an interesting background, VP of Data Analytics at Meridian, and not only responsible for the modeling that I spoke of, the predictive analytics for the entire organization, but also brings expertise from the Bank of Canada and having, a national and global view of how data and analytics really informs choices, and prior to that, CIBC. So such an interesting mix of a background, and between our two fabulous speakers, and with their background, I think we're really going to surface some insights that will be fresh and interesting for you. Okay, so Selena and Zahar, anything else around your background that I left out but you'd like to add?
Thank you for having us.
Okay. So as I say, fantastic to get started. I would say, as we think about launching into the conversation and how we level set around AI is not necessarily something brand new or different for us. Let's talk a little bit about how, if we think of AI as a broad category, how is it showing up in your organizations, and any specific use cases that you think would be appropriate to highlight for this group. So Selena, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, for sure. So hi everyone, I'm Selena. Before I jump into the question, due to compliance reasons, I have to make this disclaimer, so please bear with me. Anything that I say is just my opinion and does not represent the firm of JP Morgan Chase. I had to do that, so thank you for bearing with me through that. To answer your question, we have, many firms have been on this journey of AI for a long time. Thank you for level setting with us about AI. One of the really interesting things through discussing with speakers here, networking, as well as with Elizabeth Zahar, is that when we really think about AI, it is something that's been with us for a while. If we think about machine learning, propensity modeling, predictive modeling, even something as simple as sending a abandonment cart email, a lot of that derived from machine learning. And I think it's good to level set the fact that it's been with us. What's really have been the hype over the last couple of years is really much generative AI. What generative AI can unlock in terms of scaling. We've seen in a lot of industries, both on the agency as well as on the brand side, that people are building their internal proprietary tools where they're layering on LLM suites such as OpenAI ChatGPT in an enterprise space. We can see use cases on really helping efficiency in production. Instead of having production designers build hundreds of variations of an image, AI can really help that. So that's some examples as a marketer for AI use cases.
That's excellent. And Zahar, how would you build on that? Because you're, as the VP of Data and Analytics at Meridian, you may be seeing I know you have a different point of view in that you're supporting the organization and your business partners. So how do you see some of the most typical applications of AI?
So, first of all, what Selena said on the compliance. But there is a reason. So, I'll share experiences that may touch on, Meridian, Bank of Canada, CIBC. I'm relatively new in Meridian, and also the entire team that I'm building is relatively new. So a lot of these things are just coming at us really, really fast and furious. Most of the things I've seen in the past 2-3 years will have been driven from all of the Gen AI stuff, right? So people who were in analytics were chugging it away, creating ML models and predictive models, and 75 to 80% descriptive models, which there's nothing wrong with them. If I have good data, business intelligence, and descriptive. And then again, like this is all of you remember this. A few years ago, around 2022, this avalanche of interest in Gen AI started. So a lot, and then also the fact that it is very tangible for people when they talk about it. Like everybody can open their phone and show you how they're asking a question from ChatGPT and getting an answer. So it became much more tangible. It became much more less scary for people. And then on the other side of it, it was this wave of vendors, approaching a lot of companies and wanting to partner and wanting to, present the ways that they can help. So there's a lot of excitement. I've been in data analytics for 20 years. At least. I'm also like a very old software engineer whose graduating project was around NLPs, and I don't remember anything about it. And I never got excited when people were talking about if I went to this conference 5-6 years ago, 7-8 years ago, it would have been all around deep learning and really, really extreme machine learning. Never had a use case for it. A few years before that, it was all around, big data and the Hadoops and all of that kind of stuff. We never caught up to it completely. Twice in the past 20 years, I got excited. One was when the Tableau level of BI came around, and BI came into the hands of the business users, and it became, you didn't have a 6 months lead time to create a reporting dashboard with your technology partner and take another 3 months to add a column to it and all that kind of stuff. So BI, that was the first time I got excited. And then now, will we do it right the first time? No, none of us will. Will we get too excited and then get disappointed and get half excited again? Yes, that's going to happen. But do I think it is going to be transformational? Yes. Do I think all of the use cases that everybody talks about, not when we're talking about what we need, when We are told what we need. Are all of those use cases the ones that we will pick up and the ones that will generate a lot of returns for us? No. But again, like things are coming at us so fast that we will find the ones that will stick. We will find the ones that will work. And then after that, it's going to be all the talk about safe AI and responsible AI and ethics and the rest of that, which I'm sure we'll get to.
One of the really cool use cases I've seen just in recent days that I would like to share is if you have a really well-structured data, it can unlock so much power in generative AI. So one example that I have seen is if you have really good structured data about your customers, you can feed into a LM tool, any sort of course, in a very safe environment. And what you can do is actually converse with the LM tool as a person. So one example that I have been shown was if this brand is trying to target Gen Z or Gen Alpha, they know that's what their customer persona and profile is, gets fed into the LM tool. As a marketer, I don't need to know data background. I don't need to know data architecture. I can go into the tool and type in what are the most common media consumption channels for Gen Alpha or Gen Z. What are some catchphrases that you can use to catch attention on, for example, Discord or Reddit or Twitch? What are some popular influencers that Gen Alpha are following? So it's a really cool opportunity for you to unlock so much potential by simply conversing if the structured data is there to feed into specific LM tools. That's one of the things I have seen as a marketing strategist that I wish is very readily available for us. Yeah.
So I appreciate, Selena's build on what Sahar just shared in terms of the idea of testing and learning, right? And getting as specific as to, what terms, what language to use across social channels. And, as we think of that, with so many marketers in the room, and whether your function like Selena's marketing strategy or you are a support function like Sahar, an important support function, what would you say are you seeing around the shift by marketers? So what I'm hearing is we've got to do some more test and learn. We've got to get back to that. That sounds so fundamental, and yet being open to take risks, to not be afraid, I think is what you're proposing, Selena, of trying something new and different. What else? What other advice would you give the group in the room?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting questions that a lot of us marketers are thinking about. And one thing that I always think about is, as a society, we've been really taught, or in our education system, taught to be doers, to be a motor or a brick in our society. So a lot of people, I guess, our education system has taught us is to be doers. Now with generative AI, what is really fascinating about it is that it's forcing society, forcing us, forcing marketers to not be doers, executioners, implementers, but more as thinkers, more playing on a teacher's role on how do I write the correct prompt to produce the output that I can. And that's a skill I'm learning. Sometimes I put in a prompt and the answer is bad, then I reflect and think about, okay, maybe I'm the problem actually, it's just a machine. So I need to be more mindful as to how do I think about the prompt in a way that I'm trying to teach a 5-year-old. So then the tool can really maximize on what I'm inputting. Because at the end of the day, with generative AI, everything's about input, everything's about data. So what you actually talk or tell it to do is very the output from it is very, very dependent. So I think advice from me is really thinking about a different role or a perspective on if you're a doer in your role, an implementer in your role, how can you be more of a thinker in what you do? And that applies to every single role, I believe. Even, a lot of people think, oh, production designer will be a role that will be really easily replaceable. I will argue otherwise because AI still hallucinates. We're still seeing images being produced with 6 fingers or animals with human hands. So roles such as a production designer are still very important, but the way that they're they're treating it could be, instead of being the doer of actually producing the images, you are a prompter and you are the person that's reviewing the work.
So it's a great setup, and it really speaks to how we need to change and the idea of teaching, say ChatGPT or any other model that we're using is interesting. And I think, Sahar, you may have had that role for a long time, right? Because, having worked very closely in my corporate career with, say at TD Bank, very closely with data and analytics, I learned a lot from those partners, right? And as you have been almost the professor of data and analytics in your current role and prior to that, how are you helping teams, specifically the marketers who you work with, really adapt and shift as Selena suggests?
So I like the teaching reference. So the learning part is important. I do encourage everyone. So if you're in analytics, if you're in a marketing analytics or enterprise analytics like I am, educate your partners as much as you can, and also ask to be educated, right? So we're not in a world where we're sitting in an analytics team and we're just receiving intakes and we're just going by, this is what you asked for, this is a column you asked for, I'm giving it to you, go away, right? So if you want to understand the business need so that you can design an analytics engagement. Analytics engagements are designed, are developed, even the requirements phase is that's the most important phase. So you have to get educated by your marketers, get educated by your partners, and also educate them. And then when I say educate them, it's not about the model. It's not about, there's a certain level. I remember we did, when I was at CIBC, we did a quick AI 101, AI and RPA 101 for an executive group. And the thing that prompted me to do that was, I remember a partner, an external consulting partner, telling me, oh, we can sell anything to the banks. We just tell them it's ML. And that was so insulting to me. I was like, no, I'm going to educate my VPs, my executives, so that they at least have enough knowledge to ask you the right questions. That's the level of education we need to give to our marketers. It's not about the model, but it's so that they understand, what's AI, what's not AI, what's maybe even go to Gen AI versus, okay, this is not, Gen AI, but also about the data, also about the marketers have a very good understanding of compliance and privacy, but what is it that they may not have considered? What is an ethical use of AI, responsible use of AI? Everybody has heard about hallucination. Do they understand bias? Again, not understand it as a modeler, understand it as a question to ask. We do a lot of training. Again, I'm just going to jump into responsible AI for a second here, but we just finished a full round of training for everybody who's a vendor contract manager at Meridian. And we also embedded a questionnaire within the existing third-party risk management and vendor assessment programs. Again, not very intrusive. It's not very technical. It's just you're sitting with this vendor, you're asking some relevant questions, add these data risk and AI risk questions to it as well. And also the other way around, teach your partners, treat them the same way. I'll go back to when I was in marketing. I didn't want the product teams to come and tell me exactly what to do. I wanted them to come and tell me what revenue metric they're trying to hit and what overall, population they're thinking about. The rest would have been our expertise. Do the same courtesy, give the same courtesy to your data partners as well, right? So don't tell them exactly, I want this, and I want this, and I want you to cut it like that, I want you to cut it like that. Tell them the story, teach them how you work, and then let them design something that's useful for you.
I think that both of you complementing each other, as the professor, as the strategic partner, you're giving us some great advice. And I wonder if you think about it either from the marketing strategy role or as how can you help marketers be fantastic partners and get the most, you're both saying, how do we get the most out of these tools? What advice would you give us to critique either what we're putting in or what we're asking for? And Selena touched on this a bit, right? Because you've had the experience, I'm sure we all have, where your prompt is not tight enough, it's not specific enough, and we know that because of what we get back for generative AI. So how do we become better at delivering a critique of either our own work in terms of what we're submitting or what we're getting back? Any thoughts on that? Do you want to start us off, Sahar?
Sure. So a few things. Number one, go and ask your either your tech partners or your analytics partners. They're dying for somebody to come and tell them, hey, we want to learn how to better assess AI models, how to better assess when a vendor comes talks to us, or when we see the results of our own work. So ask them. They either have something ready or they would love to get something ready for you, or just ask ChatGPT. Again, like the body of knowledge on responsible AI, the body of knowledge on data governance, like these are not 7,000-page books, right? And it can be very much, and all of it makes logical sense, right? All of it is a no-brainer. We just need to kind of like have them in front of us to remember how to deal with it. And then on the analytics side, I would also say that usually when somebody does analytics, usually when somebody is scrutinizing data, the results should not be too far off from what you would have guessed from the beginning, right? So like as an analytics leader, if my team comes up with a humongous aha moment that nobody in the business could have even imagined, the first thing I do is I stop it, we go back, we check it 10 times more, right? So like start scrutinizing things that you see that are out of the norm. They didn't seem logical when you started. Yes, there's always insights. There's always stuff that teaches us how to do things differently. But if it's like really, really weird, start scrutinizing the data, start understanding why that went wrong.
Okay. And Selena, how would you build on that in terms of critiquing what we're feeding in or what we're getting back in our work with partners?
As a strategist, I always say failure is our teacher. So I'm very fortunate that I work in a workplace that's very regulated. So there's a lot of controls in place for that allows an environment for us to test and learn and fail before something really bad happens. So I would recommend to go out and try things. And I think as Gen AI are becoming more mainstream in marketing, we're also a lot more critical than when it first came out, let's say a year and a half and 2 years ago. I remember the hype where Gen AI can create photos like Midjourney, or that it can build PowerPoints. Marketers were very, very excited, and they were just taking the output and running with it. But now there's controls in place where things are getting sourced. If you want something that ChatGPT produces, it can link you to all the references, right? So there's checks and balances in place for you to scrutinize the work that ChatGPT is doing. Additionally, I think we're just having generally a more critical eye than when the hype was earlier, that we're already being a little bit more critical to AI, and I say we just continue to do that, to always think about it's still, at the end of the day, a machine. The output of it still needs human intervention and review. There are a lot of really great vendors that allows you to basically build a sandbox for you to play in, and you can put things like your regulatory needs, your legal needs, your brand standards that's already set in place for a company or for an organization to do what they need to do. It's great that all these came about, and I'm sure some of them probably came through some sort of a failure that someone realized, oh my God, this shouldn't be the way. So yeah, it will continue to evolve. I think as especially for financial services, it will continue to be more scrutinized. I know someone earlier mentioned that there's a specific AI task force or use council. So I do see those being more mainstream in really helping us to regulate the AI environment.
So it sounds to me as if we've gotten some great advice on how to be more critical. And I would agree with Selena, having been at this conference last year, and perhaps many of you were as well, there was so much hype around generative AI, right? It was like, oh my gosh, it's going to do everything for us. And now, a year later, meeting back with this group at this conference, it's, I don't want to say it's subdued, but we have a more critical lens, which you're both sharing with us, right? And some advice in terms of how to further develop that critique, which will set us up well. One thing that I find, I now run a consulting business with 2 partners, and our clients are always asking us about measurement, right? Which of course, as marketers, we get that, AI or not, measurement, analytics, data, results. How do we know that this next dollar is going to give us the return that we need? So that's a conversation that I feel like I have every day. And I wonder what your advice is around how do we take that measurement mindset and the mindset of driving results, and how do we apply it to AI? Like, is it generative AI? Is it something that we can expect or not? And perhaps Sahar, as the leader and the VP of Data and Analytics, help us understand how to manage our expectations around results.
Sure. So there's a couple of formalities you can bring. So there should be a prioritization methodology that you'll have when use cases come your way. Different things you can use. So one of the things we have is an AI canvas. So we fill out the AI canvas with with the business partner who brings it over. And right from there, like the same place that you're collecting the use case and the user stories and all that kind of stuff, that's the same place that we're also collecting business value. We're asking them about what's the deployment plan, is this an ongoing thing, is this a one-time thing, what's going to be the maintenance, what's going to be the BAU, and also, again, the metrics, right? So if somebody thinks this is a value that is going to be, it's not as much asking for people. I remember a few years ago, again, when the wave of ML started, different banks were asking partners to sign off on NPVs and, business value, and the partners would back off, or sign off on the number of FTEs that you're going to save, and the business partner would back off. So I don't recommend going from that side to sign off on this business value before I start working on it, but maybe talk about how do you want me to monitor and measure the business value after we go into production. So that's kind of like a better way but collect it at the beginning so that you know exactly, what are the types of things that you're collecting. And then one other thing, so that's kind of like more of the formal thing. The informal part of it is try to, again, educate the business leaders and executives on what AI is supposed to be doing. Like this new wave of AI is supposed to be doing. Again, I'm not mainly talking about predictive value of AI. Okay, now I'm going to have a higher response rate if I use this model instead of the other one. I did hear something from a peer in the industry recently that he was quoting somebody saying, related to AI, educate people in the fact that time saved is not money saved. Like, just get that out to everyone. Time saved does not equal money saved. Time saved does increase productivity. I mean, can, not 100% of the time, right? But time saved can increase your productivity. And then the next part is, what are you doing with that productivity, right? So with increased productivity, now I'm shrinking my workforce. I am removing some, overhead, like technical overhead or other things I had. Or no, that productivity is going to accelerate growth. I'm going to be servicing more clients. I'm going to be, sending more campaigns out or doing something like that. But if you think of it like that, then, first of all, most of the time, you will land on a revenue metric as opposed to a cost-saving metric. And then also, again, like this discussion, because I do talk to our frontline as well. I do branch visits. And it was very interesting. I was at a branch in a more rural area of Ontario. The demographic of that area is very, very older generation. The branch staff of that area was also more older generation. Yes, one question asked was about, is AI going to replace our jobs? To which I answered, can you talk to 5 times more people that you're talking today? No, I can't. Well, we want to grow five times faster. How can you do that then, right? Can you process 5 times more mortgages that you're doing today? No, I can't. We want to process 5 times more mortgages. So kind of like give that assurance to them. And then right after I gave that assurance to them, a few kind of like teasing, use cases I shared with them, they turned, like, they are so sharp. They know They know their business so well, they know the clientele so well, that the number of AI use cases that they were coming up with, oh, can it help me do that? Can it help me do that? Can it help me do that? So take this thing out of your heads that, oh, if they're of the older generation, they don't know how to use AI. No, it's on us to show them how easy it is, because they know the processes inside and out. So what we need for good AI is somebody to explain the process to us really, really well, and for us to be able to re-engineer that process for an AI world. So again, like the second part of the formal, AI canvas and prioritization model is this other side of it, as in go and talk to people who are doing the work today and have them to re-engineer that same work, having a free assistant. I mean, it's not a free assistant, but having an assistant at their elbow, how would they re-engineer that work?
So I think that analogy that you are ending off on having an assistant, improving productivity, creating efficiency where we can do more, do it better, do it faster, I think is a great way to frame up what kind of results we would expect. And from a marketing strategy perspective, Selena, what advice would you give us if someone was to come to you and say, what kind of results am I going to expect, right? I'm excited about AI and as you say, machine learning in general. How is this going to help me drive better results?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, we're all run a business, so we're really looking at revenue. We're looking at how many customers we're retaining, how many they're activating within a particular amount of time band that we wanted to reach. And when we think about campaign results, I'm a big fan of going old school to do A/B testing for any material that is created with generative AI, because data speaks for itself. I'm a big believer in data. We can test and learn almost everything now with a lot of the automation tools that we have available at our disposal. So even things are generative AI, which theoretically, we believe that could do us more good than bad from a revenue generation perspective or a customer loyalty perspective. We should still test it. And the best way, to me, the cleanest way is A/B test, right? And that's not just testing one and saying, okay, it's applicable to all of my campaigns, but testing multiple times because different results could arise, and then aggregate the data of some sort of a significance, statistical significance in order to us to make a conclusion. Maybe generative AI for social might come out to be better than email. We know that SEO with AI capabilities are definitely doing really well. So it's a combination of consistently testing and learning and optimizing, even for things like any sort of propensity model. It's not a one-time done and thing. Mm-hmm. We're always consistently improving. So that's on the marketing side. And in terms of on the more operational side, for example, I know we talked about lead scoring yesterday. Lead scoring is a great way for sales reps that we work with to really be able to identify high conversion customers and say, okay, they're going to be the person that I'm going to convert. And sales are very motivated to do that because a big part of their goals and objectives or commission are based on how many new customers that they sign off. So I think it's really framing the story to the right people and showing that there are a lot of the things are very, very measurable. That is tied at the end of the day our bottom line.
So what I find very interesting, and I'm sure you're picking up on this as well, is that a lot of what has made us successful as marketers in the past, a lot of the A/B testing that you spoke of, a lot of the data and analytics that of course you're bringing to the table, that has been with us for decades, right? This goes back to a bit around how we are framing up this conversation. So the advice from Selena and Zahar is all of those fundamentals, I'm going to call them, that has made you a success in the past, you need to bring that forward. Now, of course, we are working with different technologies, and those will enable, I love the analogy of having an assistant beside you, your virtual assistant. So of course you're going to drive more productivity and more efficiency. And at the same time, we're going to continue to bring those fundamentals forward today and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
So if we switch gears just a little bit, still in the marketing space, something that I know both of you are passionate about are customer journeys, right? And if we think about anything from the prior speaker, James, he was talking about his journey around Toronto, using Apple Maps. Hopefully it worked out for him. I usually use Google Maps myself, but that's okay. He was able to get here and he talked a bit about journeying in Toronto. And if you think about your customer's journey and yours as well at Meridian, and whether it's in the branch or through digital or mobile apps, can you talk a little bit about how you're able to bring data and new technology into these journeys? Do you want to start us off first, Lena?
Yeah, for sure. I won't dive too into it because we've talked a lot about personalization. And personalization, in order to do really good personalization, is having really structured data. And that's very, very difficult for many, many financial institutions, not just financial institutions, but many, many big organizations. So step one to me in thinking about creating more personalized experience, leveraging the tools, is really to restructure that data to be usable. And that's what Sahar's team do, and I partner with my data analytics team as well, really closely in order to build a data lake or find an opportunity to really extract that data for usage. In terms of how we integrate into customer journeys, there's many, many, many different touch points to do that. We talked a lot about how there's a really fine line between knowing a customer too much and not being personalized enough, not having first name in emails. So it's really through a process of where do you see in your product or in your company that you can add a little bit more personalization, still with a human touch, with the help of data into your customer journey. And that can differ across many, many, many different methods. And I would just challenge the group to really think about, while that we're leveraging data for optimization, for scalability, how do we still pertaining to that human touch? Is it having some more personalized rich media videos that people can feel like you're talking to them directly? Or is it something else?
Sahar, what are your thoughts on customer journeys or member journeys in the case of Meridian, and how we can leverage the expertise that you and your team bring along with new technologies?
Yeah, I really like, Elizabeth, when you were saying that it's still the things that we used to do as marketers, right? So, and your examples, right? So it's like the touch points, it's the segmentations, it's the creative that you're putting in front of the clients. What I would say is that, going back to let's educate ourselves a little bit more with what this new wave of AI can do for us. Go back to kind of like a wish list time of, if you did not have restrictions imposed on you by your data, or by your technology, or by other stuff, like how would you want it to have talked to the clients, right? So we kind of maybe in a world closer to that, meaning that, okay, I'll give you an example, like Next Best Offers, who a lot of companies might have, used to be a collection of a rule-based selection of which propensity model to choose, right? That used to be what it was. It's not that anymore, right? So there's a lot more data that we can feed into it. Now there's machine learning models, so you don't have to have only 5 variables in my model. I can have thousands of variables in my model. Like that's one thing that has opened it up. The other thing that has opened up a lot of opportunities for us is, again, like using Gen AI. Like I am my team's biggest client myself, right? So there is a lot of stuff that even AI and this incredible processing power that we have in Gen AI can help us do right now. So I'll give an example. Number one, hey, let's do next best action, next best experience. It will have a lot more data points into it because now we don't have to stay rule-based. We can now go, machine learning and do a lot more. It can be more real time. Our ingestion processes, our just CPU processing can support something like that. But the other thing I like about it, the other thing that, like on my side at least, I'm trying, we're on our plan to do is when we do serve up something to our marketers or to our front line, and I tell somebody these are the next 3 best actions to take for this member or for this client, I can have a narrative beside it as well, right? So use Gen AI to generate that narrative. Arm the person who's sitting there in front of the client, not just with, it is best if you have a discussion with this person about like an investment right now. Okay, but why, right? So if I have like 3 little bite-sized things that I can put in front of it and say that, next month she's going to pay off her mortgage. She's going to have much more disposable income at her, available to her. Like it's a good time to have a discussion about like setting up a wealth product for them, for example, or anything else. I don't want, it's the worst thing. And again, like going back to much more data, right? So if a person had like an over limit charge yesterday, or they had something like really irritating happen to them yesterday, either because we made a mistake or they made a mistake or they're under financial duress, and that's captured in our system somewhere because we charged them an over limit fee. And then the next day I'm having a discussion that is completely blind to that fact of their life, because a propensity model that I ran end of last month on the past 6 months of data is telling me to do something else, right? So these are all those touch points that we can break the trust of a client, or we can make it a really, really good experience by acknowledging all of the information that we have about them, that we have now, made it a bite-sized, actionable insight that we can give to them. So those are the other areas, I think, like these client journeys, being present, being aware. Data is a big part of it. Clean data that moves within your systems is a big part of it as well. Again, like when I say educate ourselves about what data does, if you're a marketer, do you want to measure your A/B testing, yes or no? If the answer is yes, I want to measure it, make sure that when you're designing a campaign, you're capturing something for me to be able to track that, right? So do you have campaign IDs? Do you bring in, whatever else that it is that needs to be passed on to the data to make this measurable? So make sure you get those as well.
Thank you. So, what I'm hearing from that is a significant change from what you've referred to as rule-based modeling, which many of us have grown up with now we can lean into more real-time data, which makes the journey so much more relevant, right? Because as always, we want the same Apple, Amazon experience from our financial institutions. That's what we come to expect, right? And I think you serve up a great example of in the past, propensity models was based on, if we're lucky, last month's data, and that would have been a win. And now it can be far more real time to be more relevant in the customer journey. So a lot of the fundamentals, and yet better and more, right? More effective, more efficient. Those are some of the themes that I'm hearing from Selena and Sahar. If we think a bit about, I want to jump back to a comment that Selena made, that as marketers, we know the importance of driving revenue, right? And you said that most of us work or have worked in financial services where we're very keen on driving to that top line revenue, finding a way to contribute. And I wonder how, with what you've shared, how is AI going to help us be more effective in driving the business forward, being part of a transformation? What advice would you share with the group?
Yeah, I think one of the a couple of key things are, one side we talked about revenue driving in terms of creating profit or creating more revenue. So things like lead scoring is really big right now across the industry, so people can prioritize their leads and maximize the revenue. If a lead score is 10 versus 90, the salespeople might decide not to talk to the one who is only 10. So that creates a lot of efficiency in driving more conversions. There is also revenue driving in terms of being able to predict churn in real time. So a lot of, I'm sure your organizations also look at is preventing customers from attriting, and what are those signals. We have all the data to enrich and really tell us more about that. That also drives revenue in the long term in terms of your customer lifetime value. It significantly increases if you're able to intercept these points. Next best action or next best product, that can also help you cross-sell, upsell customers with the again, power of the data. I do believe that there's still the cost saving side in terms of people's time spent, not so much headcount or resources, but really time spent on specific tasks. If they're able to really talk about time saved, then we can look at maybe one individual used to create 30% more campaigns this year versus when generative AI or AI support is not there.
Thank you. Sahar, how would you build on that in terms of us driving revenue?
Yeah, I think it's the same things, and it's also going back to seeing, so what is stopping us from having more revenue today? Is it speed? Is it scale and scope? We can't go to as many people as we wanted, or we can't customize to the level that we wanted. So, for example, like if you knew that Sahar is going to react better to this picture and Selena to this one, Elizabeth to this one, and then go times 1,000,000, it's not possible because we cannot generate 1,000,000 different creatives. What if there was a world where you could, right? I'm exaggerating for a reason, but go back to like what is stopping you? Like what is the thing that is it like the capacity? Is it the capability? Whatever that is, like spend your AI efforts, dollars, whatever it is there to open that.
Okay, so just before we exit, just a quick wrap up from Selena, Zahar, and myself. So as you leave this conversation, I know we've been talking a lot about AI. What we want to leave you with is return to the fundamentals. So all of the data, the analysis, the A/B testing that both Selena and Zahar touched on, you're going to go back to that. And if you're not already, I'm sure you are, but a reminder to go back to that and embrace everything that AI, generative AI, can bring to the table. The speed, the efficiency, the analogy of having an assistant next to you who's going to help you be more productive and really break down whatever barriers are holding you back today. That's what we see. That's our point of view on how technology, particularly generative AI, is going to help us as marketers step forward and be even more successful driving revenue and driving results. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.